Okay, give me 1 second.
Take your time.
Okay.
What's good, fellas?
How we doing?
How we doing?
Drink a little whiskey.
Do what?
Drinking a little whiskey.
Oh, look at you. Fancy boy life.
I've got key
What is that,
lime pie.
Is that a Merlot, Jake? What's that, a Merlot?
It's definitely a red.
Red blend?
Got an oaky afterbirth. Yeah, so we're getting the stream going here. Looks like we've got a couple people tuning in. We're going to be recording the podcast on this as well. How you guys doing?
A little tired, but pretty good.
A little tired. Okay. I am too. I slept in a little bit today.
I have slept so little this weekend. I'm such a child. Just too excited to sleep.
You're definitely a child.
Yes, that is evident. More than evident.
It was a fun weekend.
It was a blast. They hit it out of the park. PFF getting a little testy. Guys like PFF Eric, the big A analyst.
Not too happy either. The 538 Ravens backer. But yeah, it is what it is. We'll get into it. What did we think of today specifically? I thought it was a little bit of up and down, but ultimately pretty exciting at the end, and I think a good haul.
Bredesen might be the only one that's ends up, we're going to make all this stuff out of the late round picks. And in the end, it feels like it'll all be hogwash in 2 years. And probably Bredesen is the one that is an impact draft pick, something of the sort. I could see him definitely getting snaps over the first 2 years of his career. Proche catches everything, very similar profile. Texas kid, catches everything. Devin Duvernay doesn't have the speed or the athleticism of Duvernay, but a couple good picks, and we'll see. A lot of people were really happy with the value that they got late, and I definitely am one of them.
Yeah, I like the Proche pick. Need another receiver. That's the missing piece. Like we were saying, Jake, I think they can scheme up pass rush if they need to, even though the cost didn't take an edge. But, you need a little more juice at the receiver position potentially in January to get past a team like the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's a little bit of a tacit acknowledgement in confidence in Miles Boykin, hopefully. That's probably your best case scenario. Worst case scenario is either they didn't like these receivers in this draft, which doesn't seem likely, or the board just didn't fall their way. Maybe it's a combination of all those things. I don't know. But I did come away liking the two receivers that they picked. I don't think either of them are necessarily going to blow people away or really intimidate defenses, but I think you get, a nice little playmaker in Duvernay. Maybe that Golden Tate type of guy, and then a developmental possession dude in Prochet. I think that's another nice pick as well. I was talking about this on Twitter. It's long gone are the days of picking Jaleel Scott in round 4. It feels like
No doubt.
Those giant receivers, I'm just so over. It feels like the hit rate on them, regardless of whatever you like. If a guy's 6'4" or above, the hit rate is so low past like round 2. It's crazy. I'm over the big huge receivers.
It feels like with the way that the NFL has developed too, it's a lot less sort of gouge and then bomb it up to those guys, running game and then just like throw a fade. It feels a lot more like intermediate passing game, shiftiness from the receivers, kind of
Separation is king.
Right. So it feels like it's changed in that way in the last 5 years, whereas back in 2013 and 14, guys like Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall were all the rage. It has sort of gone the other way a little bit.
Well, especially with Lamar, he can throw a back shoulder fade and he can throw bombs downfield, but that's not his game. Somebody that can work the intermediate and then run up to the catch. That's what I was really looking for out of this class. And I think they did a pretty good job of finding it, although not necessarily early picks, but in the late rounds at least.
I think if you had told me they came away with this haul, regardless of draft position, I would have been pretty happy. Ultimately. So that's sort of the way I'm looking at it. A lot of people are going to come down to J.K. Dobbins versus Denzel Mims. If they wanted J.K. Dobbins over Denzel Mims, then I'm going to go ahead and trust them on that one. Ultimately, I would have really preferred a guy like Pittman if you had to break it down to one of those bigger dudes, and he just kind of wasn't there for them. They value Patrick Queen over him. In fact, he went a few picks later than Patrick Queen. So ultimately, it is what it is. We're definitely going to get into it. Do you guys want to record a podcast?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, cool. Sure, I have everything set up here.
Top of the second this year. Every year the board gets wiped on at the top of the second. But this year it wasn't just the first 10, it was like the first 20. Every single pick was just boom, 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 just taking everybody off the board.
It's always fun because like you go into that second day and it's like, oh God, there's so many guys. Like you got to think one of them is going to fall and then they just all go in succession.
There's never reaches in the top of the second for whatever reason. The teams have a night to sleep on it, and they always make good picks for whatever reason.
Sure. Right. All right. Well, I'm trying to get freaking audition going here if you guys want to keep riffing.
Yeah, so Michael Divinity comes in, and the Ravens signed him.
Michael Divinity from LSU?
Yeah. MD Lossahard Vaz looks like DaCosta's bloodline.
MD Lossahard is a good dude, man. He's been with us. He's been with us since Logan and I were doing this 18 months ago.
He's our favorite. Our favorite.
Yeah.
We love him.
Yeah, he is a good guy.
But yeah, so Michael Divinity comes in. So the way I'm looking at it in a stupid way is every single pick has a buddy on the team. So Queen was the one, like a teammate. And I don't think that Queen had one, obviously no LSU guys. So that gives him a little buddy. Everybody's got a little buddy. Like Mataboyk has.
And Mac.
Yup. And then the 2 Ohio State kids now. And Bredesen actually had Wormley, but I guess is that the only Michigan guy?
Yes, I think so, right?
So Wormley's gone. But he's got Harbaugh. He's used to Harbaugh, so that'll be straight familiarity.
I noticed that the first, I think 5 or 6 or 7 picks, every single player went to college in their home state. Nobody went out of state for whatever that's worth.
Wow, that's true.
Interesting one.
Bredesen is from Michigan?
It was before Bredesen. It was maybe it was leading into today. No, Bredesen was, I think, from Wisconsin, and he spurned the Badgers to play for Harbaugh.
Because he was a big-time recruit. I think he was like a top 50 or top 100 recruit.
Yeah, four-star for sure.
Right. And that was the theme over the course, except for Tyree Phillips. Everybody was a 4-star recruit that started a couple of years. And like all blue blood, all big Power 5 up until what, Prochet?
Yeah, last year too. Thalon Mack, Iman Marshall, 5 stars. Big time programs, big money booster programs.
It was a big Aussie trend as well.
Yeah, sometimes.
I think there was a lot of small school guys for Ozzy too.
He would have one draft where it was all
not
small
high
school guys.
necessarily, but in the middle rounds, always the diamond in the rough guys. I mean, his last pick was Zach Sealer. I can't even remember where the hell he went to college.
Ferris State, I think, right?
Yeah, Ferris State. Good memory, Jake.
Useless
information. That's my corner. I think I'm getting close to this.
Dominic Henson, worst case, Jaleel Scott can be a tight end. I mean, maybe they can bring him in on some things. He just feels like not able to separate, and I don't think he's going to have the prowess to be able to be a tight end. That's a little bit too popularized of a move because of guys like Darren Waller, but it doesn't happen all that often.
It's pretty easy to do in Madden too.
Too slender. Jaleel Scott, he might wear like a size like 36 regular suit or something. He's
right.
Just a narrow frame kind of guy. He's not going to put on that kind of weight.
Right. He had an awesome camp last year, so we were thinking, all right, maybe he can do some things, but then the limited action he got just doesn't separate, man. Just doesn't.
Cool. Well, whenever you guys are ready to get rolling.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Hey, this is Pat Ricard, aka Project Pat, and you're listening to the Baltimore Beatdown podcast, the best Ravens podcast on the planet.
It's pretty incredible. In fact, it's marvelous. Thank you, guys.
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Sunday, April 26th, another weird one where we're streaming as we go here. So we are currently speaking on Saturday, April 25th. My name is Jake Luke, and I am joined by my two good friends, Spencer Schultz and Vasily Lurikos. How we doing, guys?
The boys are back in town. The draft is over. The hay is in the barn.
Somebody should write a song about that.
There's not enough songs about it, though.
Yeah, there's one. I mean, but it's so perfect, right?
That's all you need. That's all you need is one good one. Happy draft weekend, Ravens flock.
Absolutely. Overall thoughts on draft weekend? I thought it was tremendous. Great job by the NFL going forward with the offseason as planned. Eat your heart out, Mike Florio. I think it was a very welcome distraction going all the way back to free agency with everything breaking then and then coming all the way up to now. It was just a pretty good 6 weeks, well handled by them and the draft. It got a little preachy at times ultimately with the broadcast, but I think they had good intentions and it worked out pretty well. And like I said, a very welcome distraction from all that's going on right now.
Yeah, they obviously, we touched on it. They wanted to go it's better for them to go too far in the direction of talking about the pandemic and that stuff. And of course it's appreciated and we wish everyone safe health, but guys like us who just want the damn picks to start coming in, we're not going to make a big fuss about them going too far that way. Just a little tiny fuss, but we're not going to do anything about it. So they know that it's better to go that route, but overall great presentation, ESPN, NFL Network, ABC, all that good stuff. I don't understand directors, producers, guys in different houses getting things together. It's like almost illogical to me how they were able to do that. So super impressive on their part. Good draft coverage, straightforward. The picks were bang, 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 bang. Fastest draft ever. I thought it was going to be twice as slow. Crazy speed there from pick to pick. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it did definitely go pretty quick. I would have preferred a little bbit more Daniel Jeremiah, a little less Booger McFarland. It could have just been Jeremiah and Goodell, or Kuiper. Kuiper went to my high school, so I can't leave him out.
Fast.
But it's hard to pull something like that off. They definitely did a good job. As the billion-dollar corporation as they are, they should.
Yeah, I was kind of interested by that. I didn't know they were going to be doing the simulcasting thing with ESPN and NFL Network kind of working hand in hand. I thought that was cool. Nice gesture by them, and those guys seem to have a good rapport, even though they don't work together necessarily. So I thought it worked pretty well. Did like what I see from Jeremiah or saw from Jeremiah. I think he's probably the best draft analyst pound for pound in the business. So a ton of fun. Also was flicking on Bleacher Report a little bit. Shout out to those guys. Our buddy Connor Rogers killing it there with Matt Miller on the live stream as well over there. So a lot of good coverage options, I thought. It worked out pretty well. And ultimately, like I said, I was pretty pleased. Everyone who was singing during the draft was for sure lip syncing. Corona lip sync gate. No one's talking about it. No one is talking about that. Shout out to Craven's Raven podcast. And no, I shouldn't be shouting them out. That's a competition right there.
I don't know if I'm digging that. I don't think all of them are lip syncing. There might be a little delay.
I think some of them were. I thought Luke Bryan probably not, because I was just so cringe. It's like this could only be a live performance right now. But some of who was it?
Don't you dare talk slander on Luke Bryan's name on this podcast. That's my boy.
Not a country guy. Who's that one? The All the Right Moves artist. I don't know their names, but they were definitely.
I as soon as those started, I generally was just on my phone and completely tuned out every single time. So
Connor,
I have no idea what you guys are talking about right now.
Big shout out from Ireland. Loved the pod. Thought the Ravens had an 8.5 out of 10 draft, even if I was unsure if Dobbins was really the best move at that pick.
Hey, Dobbins.
Pick. Hey, G.K. Dobbins. Is he Russian or is he Dragon? Fucking Dragon.
That is a nice Irish name.
Connor Rogan.
Jacqueline Dobbins out of Western Ontario.
One Republic. He's right, yeah.
One Republic, right. So just to get this first things first, it is Jacqueline Dobbins. I'm only calling him that. No more JK. He's a grown man now. He's in the league.
It's a strong name.
I love JK just because of J.K. Simmons, as we discussed last night, so I'm definitely going with that.
I'm Jacqueline. But yeah, so this draft as a whole, the production, all the good stuff was way better, way faster, way more efficient than I thought it would be. And maybe that is a idea for them moving forward to kind of simplify things as they get back into hopefully a normal draft next year and all that good stuff. And maybe they see some things that they can do without. So draft might be changed forever in a couple different ways. Who knows?
MD, you should send that video of me TikToking DaCosta too lazy.
Yeah, because Jake doesn't want to do it himself. He's a coward.
I'm a gentleman like that.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Jake's TikTok, it is hilarious. Kyle, quick reminder, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. It's going to help us out. It's going to help us get this thing going and rocking and rolling. We just started streaming, so boost us and do all that good stuff. But yeah, so let's get into it, guys. I mean, favorite pick. Who is your favorite pick? Looking at all of them, value, just like the player, whatever it is, what comes to mind for you, Vaz?
Harrison. Definitely Harrison. I would have taken him in the second, and to let him slide that far. And I'm not a big inside linebacker fan, to be honest. I'm pretty big on positional value. And some people are like, well, you already took Queen in the first round. Why are you going to take Harrison after that? Well, even after Queen, on paper, inside linebacker was still maybe the weakest spot on the team. And Harrison's just that Mike thumper, and Spenny, you pointed out he has a lot better athleticism and maybe better coverage ability that people give him credit for. I really like everything about that pick. To sit there and go into the draft as inside linebacker as a bona fide legitimate weakness on the roster, and then you take Queen and Harrison and leave the draft, and it could be a real strength. That's pretty impressive.
Jake, who is your boy?
Mine. So Harrison, obviously, just because I did not expect him to be there, I would have thought early to mid second round for him. So when they chose Queen, I was like, all right, we know the path that they're going to take here. They're not going to take Harrison. They're going Queen, and they're going to go with some other positions. Well, it worked out where they get Queen, trade back, they get J.K. Simmons, and then they trade back, or they don't trade back. They just get J.K. Dobbins right there, and then they trade back and are able to grab Harrison and a couple of other players. So I really like it from the perspective that I didn't think he was going to even be available for them. And I thought they were going to have to choose between him and Queen, and they go with both of them ultimately. But for me, I got to say Duvernay. I think just in terms of favorite, like from a fun perspective, I think he's going to bring a lot of fun stuff to this offense. Very versatile, kind of a gadget guy. You were talking about those gadget guys, like Chenault and stuff like that, and how they could use a dude like that. So yeah, I would say Duvernay from the perspective of Greg Roman's going to have a ton of fun with that dude.
Right. And it's that classic thing. Harrison's a pick for me too, and I'm just going to keep going on because it was just such a great value to get a guy that is so competent. And what people don't realize is that he played a Sam position very similar to what Matt Judon plays in 2018. And then in 2019, he had kind of a dual role depending on what they were doing. He did a lot of Mike, but he is 6'3", 245. Already read all this stuff off yesterday. 6'3", 245, jumped out of the gym, 36-plus inch vertical, sub 6'8", 5'3" cone. One of 5 players since 2000 that was a linebacker: DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, TJ Watt, Tyus Bowser. Those guys are not middle linebackers. Those guys are edge rushers. And Malik Harrison is going to be able to rush the quarterback. He blitzed a ton for Ohio State. SIS had him at 138 blitzes over the last 2 years, recording a pressure on 48 of them, which was like a 22.5% pressure rate, which is the highest of any linebacker in this draft. And what the hell do the Ravens like to do, man? Blitz those linebackers. So it's going to be a scheme fit. And like you said, Vaz, they get Patrick Queen. What happens if Patrick Queen misses 2 weeks? What happens if LJ Fork goes down? They, again, are completely handcuffed with a weak inside linebacker room, so they absolutely needed to get a second guy that could play off ball, whether it ended up being a Zach Bond or some guy that was maybe edge that can play a little bit of inside or something like that. But they just go ahead and go get another really good linebacker. And now we finally have the potential for an inside linebacker room that maybe it kind of looks or feels, hopefully down the road, like CJ Mosley and Zach Orr. And that was something that we thought we were going to get to see for 3, 4, 5 years as Ravens fans, and didn't. It was immediate. It was one season, one and done, ended with 2 guys. One that was an All-Pro in 2016, and the next in 2017, and then that was cut short due to Zach Orr's injury. So maybe we've got the linebackers back in Baltimore.
You make a great point about him being able to rush off the edge, I think, and it just struck me that Judon, definitely down the stretch last season, played in the middle almost as a Mike off the ball. And I don't know if the Ravens were trying to play some games with the franchise tag value there or what they were going to do, but maybe that's another wrinkle that Wink can incorporate. They have a lot of who's coming, who's blitzing from defensive backs. Maybe they can do that with some linebackers and switch one to inside linebacker and one to outside linebacker on a given play, and just another wrinkle they can add there.
Seems like he's really getting after a lot of the blitzing you guys are talking about in some of these highlights we're actually watching. So, yeah, I mean, I think from a philosophical perspective, it's just like so damn perfect. And like kind of people are sort of poo-pooing the idea of a run defending linebacker. I'm kind of not really about that, especially when you get a guy like Queen who can cover and is very intelligent, knows where he's supposed to be and what he's supposed to do. And then you, like you mentioned, Vaz, get that thumping linebacker next to him. I just think it's a perfect pairing. And I sort of link those two together as my favorite picks ultimately outside of a Duvernay. But yeah, very, very strong pick there in the 3rd round. Right.
So let's talk day 3 picks. Let's go past Bredesen. So we've got Washington out of Texas Tech. We've got Geno Stone. We've got James Prochet, and I believe I'm missing one.
No, that's it. 4 picks.
That's okay. So after Bredesen, which one of those guys, if you had to guess, is going to be a Raven, like at the end of their rookie contract still, and be a player?
We're not including Bredesen, or we are
not including Bredesen. So after Bredesen, so we got Washington, Prochet, and Stone.
I think Prochet.
Yeah. I think Prochet, I don't know. Stone's solid. He's a floor play. He's a high floor kind of guy, instinctual, intelligent. But I don't know. Looking at some of the UDFAs, I'm a fan of Nigel Warrior, who they signed out of Tennessee. This guy's a special teams ace. He's a former blue chipper. He's got a lot of traits. He could give Stone a run for the roster spot. So, Ravens love their safeties, but I think Prochet, just those hands,
honestly,
not a lot of guys with hands like that.
Can I say both?
Yeah, of course.
Stone and Prochet. I think, I think they both have a good chance to be, because Prochet, like, look at the wide receiver room right now. I mean, we've defended it and also sort of quipped about the idea that they do need to bring some guys in here, especially at the bottom. You look at it, it gets to be Chris Moore, who's just a special teams guy at this point. Jaleel Scott, I'm pretty ready to declare him a bust at this point. And you bring these guys in here, and this guy just looks pretty ready to go as far as some of the technician stuff you need to be able to do as a professional wide receiver. I don't think the physical traits are necessarily, all the way there, but he's just so crisp, very quick, and just has that competitive mindset. He goes after the ball just really, and is, a guy that I think he's going to fall because of the physical traits just 10 times out of 10. It happened with Kelvin Harmon last year, but he can find a way to get onto a roster and, make some plays, have 300 yards for you as a rookie like Kelvin Harmon did last year. Geno Stone, I look at that as maybe a Chuck Clark type of guy. I don't know a ton about him, to be totally frank, but from what I saw, people really seem to like him. His intelligence and everything that he brought, it sounded like there was really good value there as their last pick. So I think both of these guys have a good chance to be with the Ravens for a decent amount of time.
For sure. And Stone played that same role that Desmond King played. And Desmond King, I believe, had 7 picks in a season for Iowa. So I think Stone had like 3 and 3 over the last 3 years. King had a ridiculous 15 interceptions over a 3-year period. So not quite the production there, but PFF put out that Stone has only allowed, he's been starting since 2017 at Iowa and has only allowed 9 first downs in his coverage over the past 3 years total, which is completely asinine. And so if that's a guy they can end up having value there, Nigel Warrior, another thumper like Vaz was saying, a couple of those guys, those safeties that can come play special teams. Prochet is interesting to me because let's go back and look at Jaleel Scott in the 4th round, Chris Moore, I believe, in the 4th round as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was.
Let's look at the production that James Prochet has. He's an older prospect, so it's a little different than those guys, but the production, the hands, and just even looking at his damn highlights, man, those weren't plays that those two guys were making. Prochet ends up going in the 6th round towards the end of it, and that is the value that Eric DeCosta talked about on day 2 and day 3. And, he took us on a little roller coaster of not really adding any actual weapons in the passing game for a while. And then all of a sudden Duvernay comes in, has a completely different skill set as a slot than Willie Snead, and is going to be able to take the top off of the defense. I think that Duvernay is definitely going to be able to get put in motion and getting some stacks and getting some bunches and some trips and get out wide. It does, he's there. He's not going to be the flanker on the boundary a ton, but just because he's a slot guy doesn't mean he can't take some reps on the boundary. The Ravens, Greg Roman, don't play like that, and I'm just really excited to see what Duvernay can do from that perspective. And John Harbaugh's fist pump says it all. That's a guy they think is going to come in and take snaps, catch balls.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I don't know why he was so pumped up, but apparently they really liked him because they were afraid the Patriots were going to draft him when they jumped up in front of them. They grabbed Devin Asiasi instead, the other Devin, and they go ahead and they get their guy in Devin Duvernay. Voss, what is your thoughts on him?
I like Duvernay. I had him in a mock draft months ago. Like you said, to me, he's Laviska Shenault light. He's just not quite as tall, not quite as big, but he has that running back build. He's tough. He breaks tackles. He's a heck of a blocker. He's a really good blocker for the guy of his stature. I think the Ravens probably were hoping to get a receiver in the 2nd round, and Pittman and Shenault and Higgins, they went right up to the top of the board, and I don't blame them necessarily for passing on Mims. Mims was a total late riser. Those guys are always kind of concerning, and there's a reason why he made it all the way down there. And even I saw a quote, I guess an hour ago, where somebody asked DeCosta, your goal is to make the Ravens offense undefensible, and he said, how do you do that? He said, we have a lot of work to do. And I think they may still explore a receiver, but Duvernay, I think, is a really nice fit again. He just fits that Lamar skill set. Hit him on a crosser and let him break some tackles and make a chunk play. That's really what it is.
Right. He can run those slot fades for you too. So Duvernay, according to PFF, 741 slot snaps in 2019, 795 snaps on the boundary in 2018.
Wow.
The closest thing he was going to see to an NFL defense in 2019 was LSU, and he fucking clowned them. He destroyed them.
And that's what's so interesting because Texas was, I think, 6th heading into that game in the country. Ellinger had a really down year for what he was supposed to do, all that good stuff. But they gave LSU, that was a hell of a game, really fun game to watch. And if Texas wins that game, which they came so close to doing, maybe we look at this Texas team different. Maybe everyone looks at Devin Duvernay a little different. But yeah, he completely ran through LSU's perimeter guys over and over and over, takes a slant, busts it right up the seam.
It looks like Hollywood against the Dolphins in week 1.
Yeah, it really did.
Seriously.
Carbon copy.
Right. Like he's playing like it's a kid on varsity playing against JV, basically. And that was a really good defense. And LSU Tigers, I think, had 14 draft picks, if I'm not mistaken. Wow.
Grant Delpit being one of them, who is a very strong player, noted issues with tackling. He got absolutely baptized by Duvernay more than once in this game.
Right. So hopefully the Ravens embrace screens a little bit more in 2020. I think that's definitely something.
They definitely need to, because if you look at some of that film, like some of his best plays were coming on screen. So I think there were some of the creative ways you were using Hollywood. He had a nice little screen, I think, shuffle type deal against the Patriots that went for a big game. So stuff like that to get him going is really going to, I think, help him hit the ground running here, and just manufacturing touches, getting him confidence. I think he's going to be a productive third-round pick.
Right. And you look at Lamar, who really struggled throwing some of those screens as a rookie, was a lot better last year. So hopefully that's something brought in. You mentioned Hollywood. Hollywood's maybe strongest part of what he did at Oklahoma was on screens. He was disgusting, a game breaker on screens. And knowing how the Ravens like to kind of differentiate between the power pistol and then going into those 4 wide, 5 wide, spreading the field, the 5 wide stuff. There's absolutely room for it. So I'm excited to see what they can do. Hopefully they add some screens, a little bit more jet sweeps, and Devin Duvernay can do both of those things.
Definitely. So he is one of the picks. They also go ahead and get Justin Matabuke. We did a little bit of a podcast breaking him down. Voss, I don't think you were a huge fan of this pick.
I wasn't a huge fan, and it's growing on me a little bit. He's a penetrator, right? And I defer to Spencer and you, Jake. I haven't broken him down in depth, maybe as much as I should have. He was probably a little bit lower than some of the other D linemen. I like Jordan Elliott out of Missouri, for example, a little bit more than him. A little bit undersized, a little bit inconsistent, but he definitely flashes, and that's what they say. If you flash the ability, then you can do it, and then it's just a matter of becoming more consistent at it. So yeah, they needed young defensive linemen. Everybody knows that. I don't know if they needed necessarily 2 this year. Washington is my least favorite pick in this class. But you maybe could have came back next year and got that, or got another defensive lineman then.
Plus the Ravens have a prowess at finding UDFA defensive linemen.
Right. And I don't know. Washington it was like Noah's Ark. You need two of everything, right?
Already, I'm willing to say it, but he just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
How many defensive tackles can you carry? We only carried 5 last year.
Right.
And now you have like 6 guys that are draft picks or got a decent sized free agent contract. Like, what's the point of signing Jelly Ward? And what are you doing with Daylon Mack at this point? I don't know.
I think Daylon Mack is not looking so hot. He's
better than Washington, though. I mean, traits wise, at least.
Right. And just Mack played in the SEC, not Washington. But yeah, and
Washington was Mississippi State or Texas Tech. I'm sorry, you're right.
Right. So Mack had Mack is like the opposite, and it's kind of like a guy like Rashard Lawrence out of LSU. Like, he is a pass rushing specialist defensive lineman. And then he got eaten alive. I think he played against the Browns, if I'm not mistaken, when Brandon Williams was out. Got freaking gobbled up. So maybe he's not where they want him to be. Jelly Ellis, injury history. So it's going to be a fight, man. It's going to be a fight in this training camp for those spots. Washington projects to me. They hit him at that 3-3-5 edge. He could corner a little bit, like weirdly, like would be able to rip around the outside. And then also that just took on a lot of double teams. I don't know, but at the end, there's guys on the board still. Maybe I go in another direction. Yeah, that's definitely probably my least favorite pick as well.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a chance to take a no-name Big 12 defensive tackle in the 5th round, you got to do it. So, not going to totally clown him, but I don't know. You had some guys on the board. Donovan Peoples-Jones eventually went to the Browns. That would have been another wide receiver pick, but they did eventually go Prochet, so I think they made up for that a little bit. Couple of other guys. Who are you guys looking at that spot, if you can remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's kind of a blur. The pass rushers, right? I think Weaver and Anai.
Anai was there, yeah.
And both those guys, I wrote an article a week ago, and Weaver and I were both on my hate list. But
am I on that too, or no?
No, you're definitely not on that. And that was like hate, like in the third round when they were projected. In the fifth round, hell yeah, jump on that.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know. All the guys I liked went early, and all the guys I didn't like went late. So maybe I'm a good judge of talent. I don't know.
Right. So then in the end, it says that Tyus Bowser, Jalen Ferguson, probably Jihad Ward, and let's see what happens. It feels inevitable that Pernell McPhee or Clay Matthews or one of those guys gets brought in. The kid out of James Madison that was, I think, one of their first 3 UDFAs that were announced. He's a menace, man. He's a menace. He's pretty light, but JMU had 2 ends that were both had 20+ tackle for loss, 10+ sacks. That were a wrecking crew, and I got to see them play once. So a little excited there, but we'll see. And the Ravens edges were a big winner, I guess, from this draft as well. So we shall see what happens. Bowser, I'm really excited about, man. I'm really excited to see what Bowser can do. Let's get him, 40, 50, 60% of snaps consistently on the field a lot. I think he's ready, and he kind of was the survival of the fittest in a double dip from Ozzie Newsome, where they took 2 edges. So those guys got pitted against each other. I'm sure that they were, friends, whatever, to an extent. They're coworkers, peers, friends, boys, whatever. But again, Bowser on the Ravens making an impact. Tim Williams gone. So
4th-year breakout. The Ravens, Pat did edge rusher 4th-year breakout. Every time it works.
Exactly. But 4 years from now, not looking so hot.
What I'm fine with about it all, like some of the moves that were made or not made, is it does at least feel like there is some plan in place at every position, even if you don't think they addressed it in this draft. So like people complaining they don't go edge rusher, Anai, or whatever, there is a little bit of a plan there. They don't go big splashy wide receiver. They get some of these smaller gadgety guys, but there's a plan there with Boykin. They want him to keep developing and become that X for them ultimately. So there are some uncertainties, but I wouldn't say I don't feel confident in pretty much any position in the roster. I feel like they're pretty rounded out at this point.
At this point, tight end, maybe is almost a weak point on the roster, which is crazy because you've got two tight ends that start on every team in the NFL. So that's crazy to say almost. It's not as deep as you might want it to be, but you're talking about a plan at every position. And I always talk about the love that I have. It might have been you. I can't remember. It might have been Vaz that originally brought it up a while ago, but in pretty much every room on this team, there is a vet, a proven vet, an ascending player, and a contingency plan in a rookie or a second-year player. Running back, Ingram, Edwards in his prime, Hill and J.K. Dobbins fill the young role. I mean, even at quarterback, they've got the proven vet. Well, I guess not. It's weird to say, but they've got a vet in RG3. A peaking player in Lamar Jackson, and then a contingency plan at the very end with a young Trace McSorley. And it's every single room on this team. It feels like that now. Linebacker, LJ Fort, the proven vet, at least. So they have one there. So interesting. I love that format. I love that layout. And Vaz, you love to talk about, the big positions of value. Cornerback, got it. Free safety even, as a second tier, got it. Left tackle, got it. Right tackle, got it. Quarterback, got it. They're good in the right places and cheap in those places too. So, money's going to get paid, but this rookie class comes in cheap, and maybe we're looking at this with the wrong lens. They already are stacked at those positions of value. Those guys are going to end up getting paid. So now the Ravens have kind of like reverse positional value. That might sound stupid, but
no, exactly. You're on it. You're right on it.
A bunch of cheap guys. Yeah.
Right. They enter this draft with really a trio or even a quartet of lockdown corners. So you don't need a corner, and let all these and the same thing with, offensive tackles. You have Judon, you have Hollywood. So those and Lamar, obviously. So you let the other teams reach, and then you just have a meat and potatoes value draft.
It's
a luxury, and they did it. So
as much as you want to preach positional value and you want to go after it, it's like they're pretty stacked at all the positions value. Like eventually you've got to go in other directions. And I think positional value, very important. And the way analytics has developed, I'm a big fan of it. I'm fascinated by it, but I think sometimes people within analytics, Twitter and, circles of that community, they maybe go a little too hard in that direction where they're overly worried about positional value. And maybe that's where you start to reach a little bit for certain types of players, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. I'm a big BPA guy. Ravens now signing former Oregon tight end Jacob Breeland. Per Tom Pelissero, he was having a breakout season for the Ducks with 6 touchdowns through 6 games before breaking his leg. Healthy now and joining a team that loves tight ends.
They'll find a tight end. There's no question about that. Even if it's Scarf. Scarf looked pretty good out there last August.
Yep.
They'll find a tight end. I'm not worried about the tight end, really, to be honest.
Tight ends are easy to – you can trade a 5th-round pick and get like a top 30 tight end.
Like a tight end 3 is equivalent to what? Wide receiver 5 in terms of how valuable they are, to the roster.
And they also have Ricard too. So
Ricard took I think 150 snaps lined up as a tight end last year.
Sure.
Quick tangent. So I'm doing I'm working on the roster outlook. We're going to publish tomorrow on Baltimore Beatdown. Where should so I don't have a position for fullback, obviously. Should I list Ricard as a tight end or a running back?
How about a defensive lineman?
They're carrying literally 13 defensive linemen. I would just throw him a tight end.
All right, no doubt.
He takes over. He has the ghost of Hayden Hurst pass. He's going to carry the torch for Hayden Hurst into the room. They were the compadres, the boys. He was the honorary member of the tight end room.
Going to be rocking that mustache in honor of his fallen brother. But I feel like at this point we've a little bit glossed over the Bredesen pick because it was just such a slam dunk, obvious pick. What is the outlook for that, Spenny? We will start with you. Is he going to be in position to start for this team in 2020?
I hate to say it, and I know that our guy Ken McCusick was really big on Bradley Bozeman, but Bradley Bozeman the amount that they pulled him and tried to use him on combo blocks, those are things that you really rely on a center to do. So that was using a center's skill set as a left guard as well. And I think that Bozeman now can kind of just be that swing man across the interior. Bredesen, the beauty of what Bredesen did at Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, ran 50% zone concepts in the run game, 47% gap. So what the hell do the Ravens do? Change their plan every week as far as what are we going to do. Is they have every single concept with veers and options and all that stuff. Every kind of block that you need to make is in the Ravens offense, and Bredesen did a lot of similar stuff at Michigan. He is a technician in pass pro. He can move. He can get up into your chest plate. Great hand strikes, great hand placement. He will get rocked a couple times. He'll get thrown to the ground. He also looks for work and will go put guys on the ground. So I think, he's got a little bit of refinement to go, but in pass pro, he's solid. And that's what you're worried about first, especially in such a confusing run game. The defenses are kind of on their heels, a little worried, or kind of want to shoot a gap and aren't sure of. It might make the transition a little easier. Linemen end up looking a lot better in the run game in the Ravens offense. The Lamar Jackson factor just does that. So having a guy that's rock solid in pass pro as well as Powers, both of those guys, Powers was a little more extreme at Oklahoma, dominant, incredible pass pro, pretty weak as a run defender. So you've got 2 guards there that you can hide and morph them. And I feel like it's easier to progress as a run blocker than it is in pass pro. Pass pro has a lot of athleticism involved that's natural, center of gravity and being able to anchor and the way that you use your hips and kind of blow up on the spot. So, I feel like Bredesen, if I had to go odds-on favorite to start at left guard right now, he would be the one getting the minus 110 for me.
Yeah, he the broadcast comically behind, so I kind of wasn't paying attention to the TV when they started talking about him because the pick had been made and then 5 picks later they're talking about it. But I could tell Kuiper was fired up, and he always gets particularly antsy when the Ravens are picking. So he starts talking about it, and I'm kind of half paying attention. I'm like, he's going to be out there doing some good pass protection stuff, pretty short arms, maybe getting downfield the run game a little bit. Got some durability coming there out of Michigan. Talking about this great dominant conference, the Big Ten, playing for Jim Harbaugh, their brother of John, going to be a tremendous starter there for them.
Got Jack, too. Jack up there with Jim, talking to John.
Jack and Jackie Harbaugh, great family, great football family there. See McGraw sometimes, but he's going to be a starter for them in year 1.
Nobody's got it better than them. But, I think, they have I don't know. Maybe it's just intuition, but Skura, I think he's going to be ready sooner than later. I don't know if you guys caught this, but right after Yanda retired, and I can't remember where I heard this, but there was an interview, and Yanda said that if I remember correctly, he had the same trifecta knee injury, and he was able to come back from it. And we know Siragusa wasn't Nico Siragusa, but Skura played guard in 18, and he was pretty good.
Better. He was better at guard.
People forget that, So I don't know. There's a lot of big bodies, and it's just going to be kind of let them battle it out and sort it out. We were out of camp last year. The first week, it was a jumble. They had Illuminor jumping around. They had all kind of guys jumping around.
Hurst was locked in right guard.
Right. Orlando Brown, they weren't letting him get first team reps for a couple days, and then a week in, they kind of figured it out. And Joe D and Roman were like, all right, here's our 5, and there's our 5. I think that's going to kind of how it's going to be this year, where it's going to take a couple weeks of camp, God willing, if there is camp, to figure out what they're going to do here. There's a lot of bodies. I like Phillips. He looks like on the hoof. He looks really good on the hoof. But
we haven't talked about him really at all. What's your breakdown on him, do you think?
I think that's because we don't know him that well.
I definitely don't. What do you like about him, boss?
Well, he just, he has the attributes. He has the attributes, and he has a tackle versatility, and I think that's the key, and that's why he went ahead of a Bredesen or a John Simpson out of Clemson or some of the other guard, because without Hurst, you do need a backup tackle. That's an important role to fill, and there's a lot of value there. But he has the body type, he has the power. None of these guys are necessarily dancing bears that are going to be making,
He apparently did with bears. Big hunter.
I saw
Direct
that.
quote, if it crawls, I'll skin it. Love that.
Hopefully he doesn't see me crawling around the house, because then we're going to have some problems. But not to open the curtain too far there. So, yeah, Phillips, that was a pick that people were also a little bit baffled by at the time. But coming off the high of a pretty good day 2, I don't think it really stung. I'm kind of in the same camp with the Broderick Washington pick, but I guess we should probably break down a little Geno Stone, Spencer.
Yeah, Geno Stone, there's this narrative that he is a box safety and that he ran 4.6 and he's going to have to play in the box. It's complete BS to me. He is smart as hell in 2 high, very strong zone defender. Instinct. He just is that guy. It's a stupid comparison to make, but it's just like Ed Reed ran a 4.5 something. When you watched Ed Reed, did he look like he ran a 4.5? He looks like he runs a freaking 4.2 because his instincts take over and he books it before anyone else does. He knows he's so damn smart. I just can't say enough about how smart he is in coverage, understanding leverage, understanding zone, baiting throws, making plays on the ball. And then even from the safety spot, 10 yards, towards the middle of the field, bubble screens, outside zone, sweeps, all that stuff, destroys dudes, absolutely obliterates guys, hits through people, wraps up, sound tackler, sound in coverage, good ball production, tough to fool, has integrity in his zone. He is not going to get beat over top unless it is him in man. Don't put him in man coverage with a freaking speedy receiver. He can get exposed there and stuff, but it's a great addition, especially because Deshaun Elliott, I want him healthy so badly. I think he brings so much to the back end, and especially now with Brandon Carr gone, and we talk about Jimmy Smith, potentially playing some safety, which I think we will see if everyone's healthy, but in the end, everyone's not going to be healthy. They somehow got even deeper at DB, but everyone's not going to be healthy. Guys have to be versatile. Guys have to be able to move around. Geno Stone has the movement skills with his feet and with his eyes to play in the slot and do some creeper blitzes and come up and blitz off the edge, and just his motor runs hot, man. He is a Red Star type player, and I know that Mike Renner can go on for an hour at PFF about how much he loves Geno Stone, how underlooked he's been, and he truly was one of the best defenders in the Big 12 last year and has been for a couple years. So I'm really excited about Stone. 7th round pick, if that's who it is, as opposed to, Zach Sealer, the guy comes to mind, I'll take Stone. I think that it's really good value there. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Where was he projected to go initially?
Like 3rd through 6th.
He was a late riser. Last maybe 3 weeks, he was starting to pick up some steam. I think you make a great point, Spencer, about the Iowa system with King. He's maybe the best slot man in the league right now, And the Ravens have a really strong rapport with Ferentz. They definitely got that scouting
Pipeline.
report. Right, they have that scouting report down tight. That's probably one of their feeder schools, along with, I guess, Oklahoma and Bama, right?
Definitely.
I'd point out that Craven Some Raven podcast is getting some bits off in the comments here.
Macari let Macari this O-line. Let me carry this O-line.
How do I see the comments?
That's a little bit of a reach.
On the right-hand side, hit live comments instead of private chat.
Somebody's talking smack?
No, he's just trying to get some bits off, and I want to acknowledge it. Pro Shea Butter.
Ooh.
Is his routes buttery smooth?
A Rolling Stone Gino allows no yards.
A Rolling Stone allows no yards.
Patrick, yes, Queen.
I had no idea this was there the whole time. I had
no
idea what you guys were talking about.
That's where Lost Heart is getting his takes in there.
That's the man. That's for now. I understand everything.
Yeah, Jay Lethal says Queen's tape is fascinating. He makes a few splashy plays, doesn't get involved as much as Devin White. Devin White was not a high-level processor for me, and I think Devin Bush was more so, while White is bigger, stronger, faster, thumper, makes crazy plays in pursuit. But Queen, to me, just is the best linebacker, at least in the last 2 classes where I've really dived into the linebacker classes, at processing, at reading his keys. So I can see, not thinking he makes splash plays, but if you go look from the end zone view, you're going to see him doing some crazy, crazy stuff in the first 3 steps of a play. He is around the ball constantly. He just isn't as much of the solo tackler as some of the other guys. He's going to be a gang tackler guy, a drag down guy a little bit more. Some backs are going to run through him. I think we saw Najee Harris against when they played Bama. Najee Harris truck sticked him twice. But then also Najee Harris is a really good route runner. Tried to route up Patrick Queen, two pass breakups in that game on option routes. So Queen, is a little undersized. He's also 20 years old. He's not at his physical peak yet. He's not at man strength yet. So, he's going to be developing, but to have the IQ that he has at the age that he has with the speed, those are the 3 dominant traits for him, or 3 dominant attributes, I should say, for Queen. And to me, if you can get someone that smart and that fast at that age, the sky's the limit. Tremaine Edmonds is a guy that I think of who is a lot bigger, but he can't quite do some of the things in space that Queen can even. So a little bit different profile there, but Edmonds was I think 19 when he was drafted. And now all of a sudden he's like an all-pro at level linebacker almost at 21, 22 years old. So Queen is going to be, 22, 23 with NFL experience down the road. And in the meantime, they got Malik Harrison to go play against Derrick Henry, to go big boy people in the box, and then Queen can go gang up on them, and those 2 are going to drag dudes down. A lot of assisted tackles between them in the future.
So what is the remaining need on this team? Ben Sliced Bredesen.
Wide out. I like another wide out. Like we were talking about earlier, when the going gets tough and you're in a January battle and you need a splash play and you're up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and all their weapons, I'd like a little more juice in the wide receiver room. I like Willie Snead. I obviously like Marquise Brown, but say, God forbid, knock on wood, Hollywood gets dinged up, or even Andrews gets dinged up, that can hurt. So I'd explore the trade route. Apparently, Curtis Samuel may be available.
I'll give a 3rd round pick for Curtis Samuel.
Absolutely. And Jake was talking about potentially Taylor Gabriel earlier. I think that would be a nice addition too. He's a smaller guy, but he can play on the outside. So that's my take, at least.
Agreed there. I mean, just playmakers. They just need one more playmaker that can catch passes in some format to take to free up Hollywood in ways. And like you were saying, Vaz, if Hollywood goes down, that box creeps in front of Lamar Jackson, and that happened against the Titans. Those better defenses, those playoff defenses, the smart ones that have good coaching and consistency and can execute a game plan, they're going to give a lot of trouble if Hollywood's the only guy that can really take the top off. Guys get hurt, and that's what we fail to project right now after the draft. We're like, well, they got, Duvernay and Boykin and Snead and Brown. All right, well, what happens when two of those guys can't go on a Sunday? That's not good.
Right, and I like Boykin a lot, but you don't want him to be the lead dog for a 2-3 week span while Hollywood's nursing a little small injury or something, right?
As Jake says, maybe Boykin is dog adjacent right now and has a potential to be a dog, but he's not a dog yet.
Hollywood is a dog. OJ Howard.
Yeah.
5th round pick next year, 6th round pick.
I mocked Alberto. I can't pronounce his last name still.
Okwebanam.
Yeah. Say that again.
Okwebanam.
But because it was kind of like, he's part receiver, part tight end, that sort of thing, because you need one more playmaker, I think.
Plus they're down hurt. They experienced.
Right, exactly. Because if Andrews last year, he was dinged up, and then you had Hurst. But now you trade Hurst, and then you take Dobbins, and that doesn't – you're kind of lacking a little bit there.
Agreed. For sure. So, down Hurst. Seth Roberts, famous now or infamous for the drop in the playoffs. It was a weird situation with the DB almost getting a hand on the ball, and I don't know, he just gave up on that one. But going back to last regular season, Roberts played, I want to say, at least 48% of snaps, if not more than that. It might have been in the 50s, but that's a lot of snaps. So, the Ravens, Jake and I, big picture, when we started this podcast, we were really excited. We thought that the Ravens were ready to, take the next step, but the next step wasn't to win a Super Bowl. And now I feel that they're ready to win playoff games as a whole, is where my head is at. Big picture, go into an AFC championship and give it their all, but still that far away from being, a Lombardi trophy team.
You got to strike while the iron's hot. This might be Lamar's last cheap year. This is the year to go for it. If there's a year to, there's a receiver you think's worth a third, but it costs a second, give up a second.
Jay Lethal commenting, complimenting us, then saying Alshon Jeffrey might make sense. Yeah, I would jump all over that.
I saw people talking about Deshaun Jackson, maybe calling about his availability. Pretty inexpensive. Probably wouldn't be too hard to swing for as well, depending on health. So, yeah, just look to the Eagles, I guess.
Boom. Look to the Eagles. Howie Roseman, Eric DeCosta's boy. So, yeah, at this point, I'm really excited about the defense. I don't know how teams are going to score. And, it's just crazy to me, being a middling team with a middling offense that is streaky. You're coming to Baltimore. It's not going to be fun. I think the pass rush is going to look so much different in terms of some even front looks, a little more, maybe a little more standard kind of nickel looks, 2-4-5, like actual base, like a 4-man rush at times, throwing some creepers in, dropping some guys off a little bit, but some even front alignments. It feels like they fell out of love with those two gappers. They might want to be able to rush 4 at times and have amazing coverage downfield and see if Calais Campbell and Judon and Bowser and Ferguson and Wolf can go get some sacks, man. And I think that's coming because if you're dropping 7, you're rushing as a penetrating style front a little bit more at times. Not saying that's all they're going to do, but that's a tough 7 to try to throw against with Queen, Clark, Thomas, all those guys. It's going to be really difficult. So I think they have a lot more versatility this year. We'll see. I would love for them to have a contingency plan for Earl Thomas because I think that is maybe the one piece that gets hurt and that really hurts them in single high. It kind of eliminates the ability to do some of the cover 3 stuff, some of the cover 1 stuff. There's just the true single high stuff. And we saw Thomas up in the box a lot. So they weren't dependent on that necessarily. They did like to bring Thomas in the box more than he ever had at any point in Seattle. But that's maybe the one domino that can fall that really puts them in a weird spot.
Yeah, a lot of talk from you, Voss, about keeping up with the Chiefs, but they got smacked around by the Titans, and I think part of it was the roster construction. They were not strong up front, or at least as strong as we thought they were. They were able to mask it a little bit with their very strong play in the secondary. So I think adding those guys, it definitely helps with that, and I think they would beat the shit out of the Titans if that game were played again with these rosters.
Yeah, I think they would too. That was a one-off game, and I don't
I
fault
agree.
them.
Yeah, by the way, I do agree.
Yeah. No, I know. No. We're on the same page for 100% here. But that was just every single inch and every single bounce just went the wrong way. And I think if they played that game 10 times, the Ravens would win 9. And that just happened to be the one time the Titans won. And they were chasing their tail from the start. But there's nothing wrong with, eliminating that possibility and strengthening the places they were weak there. No question about it. So we're looking at it. We were talking earlier. It's at least the way I see it, the AFC's it's kind of there's two other teams that I think are viable. Really, it's KC and it's Cleveland if they can put it together. So of course, who knows what's going to happen? Some other teams can creep up in there, but Tennessee doesn't scare me. Buffalo doesn't scare me, and I'm not saying that to be cocky, but I just think the Ravens are better on paper and they're better on the field and they have better coaching. So that's my opinion.
Right. And, going to that Titans game and talking about the penetrating style front, let's say you now have less two gappers and you want to explode through gaps. You have linebackers that you can count on maybe a little more that are a little more athletic. And if you are able to take 1st and 10 and turn that into a Titans or whatever hypothetical team that wants to play big boy ball, turn that into a 2nd and 12, a 2nd and 11, a 2nd and 9. It's a whole different set of circumstances than when they're consistently at 2nd and 5. And that is, people are asking, generally in the Twitter sphere, did they overcompensate? No, they just saw holy shit, that was a big weakness we didn't realize we had against a really good team. So they filled it. You maybe make a slight philosophical change on defense while they revolutionize football defensively, and not enough people are talking about that. But they are accounting for something that they didn't think was going to happen. They thought we've got Michael Pierce, we've got Brandon Williams, they'll be able to hold their ground. And they couldn't. And they also aren't making splash plays in the backfield. So what the hell, man? Let's get some penetrators in there. And they did.
Yeah. So, I mean, going to the other teams in the AFC, Kansas City, obviously the favorite to me. I think the Ravens probably a strong second right now. Cleveland, I'm intrigued by them, but Baker Mayfield looked pretty bad at times last year. He's really got to turn it around, I think. And it was, a lot to do with the offensive line and the way that they built that team. They've made some changes, but it's going to be no excuses this year. And it's not going to be like his rookie year where he was playing some bad defenses down the stretch. So he's got to turn it around a little bit. But I think if he does, then yes, they will be scary as well. Houston's going to be in the mix, but as long as Bill O'Brien is the coach, the Bills kind of do scare me a little bit. I like their roster a lot. Josh Allen, I think, is kind of like a not as good version of sort of what you get with Lamar in a weird.
It's so conservative. They had like the most conservative draft imaginable.
They got
always.
They got some decent players, but it was very kind of boring in a way.
Yeah, but Diggs is the splash.
Yeah, Diggs was their first round pick. So, that's fine.
They play conservatively. That's just what they are.
Right.
That's like their whole persona on the field is defense, running the ball, conservative, and then Josh Allen just a circuit breaks all of a sudden and they start doing crazy shit for like a quarter.
And yeah, I know we've talked about Rivers dropping off, but I mean, if he's even 80%, I think the Colts are going to be in the mix too.
If he has a better year than he had last year, definitely. With them adding Buckner, them getting Pittman, Jonathan Taylor is going to be a top 5 fantasy back in football. If I'm willing to take him in the second round, I might. That's going to be a crazy good fit, crazy good offensive line.
Akers, don't sleep on Akers.
That's a good one too.
But Jake, we can't. They're called Indy. We're from Baltimore. They don't get.
They don't get. 1995.
They don't get to have that. There was the year I was born was when they left, and I think it was like a month when I was born. Then they left with the Mayflowers, but still, we have to call them Indy. We can't call them the C word.
Okay, Indy. I think they do. They do.
Or the Bolts, the Indianapolis Bolts.
They do put Colts on the scoreboard now. The last time they were here, they had Colts on the scoreboard.
Did they?
Yeah.
Right,
I think
fine.
the last.
I guess we'll give it up then.
I think when they came here for the wild card game for Ray's last home game, they had Colts up there. So I think that's
we're just going to freaking annihilate them through the blood of the power of Ray Lewis and Christ compels you.
I honestly I like Jim Irsay. He seems like a good guy to me. Like
definitely fun to party with.
Yeah, like his dad was like a malevolent asshole, and he's just like kind of he's maybe not the smartest guy, but he seems like a nice dude. Like there are kids
just
that are
classic rich son who never had to do anything.
There are people that are born into wealth that are like that are negative, when they become adults that are turn a little malevolent with it, and I feel like he didn't. He's got his own demons that he's dealing with. That's fine, but
I don't know enough about him. to make
Now
that
they got
judgment.
all I know is they got DeForest Buckner, and that's going to be a damn problem. Darius Leonard behind it. Malik
What's up with
Hooker?
Hooker? Yeah, what's up with Hooker? I was going to say.
Weird.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the Ravens should maybe inquire, because if you can get a hooker at a good value, then
I'm always intrigued by those center fielders, whether it was a Delpit or a
Range is something you can't teach.
I mean, how many years in a row did the Ravens have the Stay the Ravens presser, and Ozzie would sit up there and say, "We want a safety with range." I mean, pretty much every single year after Reed left for like 5 years in a row. And
That's
we
why
had
they had
Thomas,
to pay, that's why they had to pay Earl Thomas.
but he's not necessarily that guy anymore. And I don't think he's slipping at all. But he's not that single high guy.
There's like two of those guys in our lifetime. One of them is Ed Reed, and one of them is Earl.
There's like one true actual center fielder every other draft.
This year, I thought it was Delpit. No,
I think so too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's why I was surprised. I'm surprised. That is a trait that is so unique that's why I was surprised to see him he didn't fall that far, but he wasn't, coveted. And that is such a rare trait. And in the end, range translates into being able to run cover 1, being able to run cover 3, and it just adds to what you can actually execute on the field playbook wise. So it's baffling to me to see a guy like that who did it at the highest level with that range. He had a torn labrum and just played through it, and everyone's like, "Oh, he can't tackle." Like, I don't give a shit if he can tackle.
He was trying to blow guys up. He was just I saw live. He was just trying to annihilate people, and then they'd bounce off. It wasn't like he couldn't tackle. He
also would redirect them because he came in so hot. They would have to like pause and do something, and then all of a sudden you've got these Chason and Queen and Phillips and all these crazy corners. They were the fastest defense possible. Like thin framed guys that could fly to the ball.
They were an NFL defense.
Yeah,
they just were. I mean, like all of those guys were like within the top 2 rounds this past weekend.
Unbelievable amount of them in the NFL now. So crazy. LSU, unbelievable year, unbelievable draft, and the Ravens finally got their first taste of the dirty South, or not the dirty South, of the Bayou.
Oh, they've had their taste of the Bayou ever since I started hosting this podcast.
Boom.
Oh, they won the Super Bowl in NOLA. I love NOLA. That's my probably my favorite place to visit in the continental U.S.
I still haven't been. I need to get down there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
My wife went to school at Tulane, so I was down.
Tulane is in the city.
Yeah, I've probably been to NOLA like 15 times. We had a good time down there. Best food, like best any kind of food, like best like Chinese food, best sushi, everything. It's just in New Orleans for some reason.
Yeah.
Why would the best sushi be in New Orleans? I have no idea, but it's better than Japan somehow.
Probably just all the salt and shit they're putting into it. But yeah, we still have extended family down there, so I got to get down there to visit them at some point.
Felipe's tortillas, legit.
Oh,
come on, no free ads.
They're paying him. What do you mean? He's wearing
brought to you by Felipe's Tortillas. Were you partying too hard last night? Feeling a little bit regretful about some of your actions? Want to soak it up in a salty...
Are you Felipeing out about what you did last night?
That's pretty good. Oh, goodness. What else we got here?
What are we going to look back and say about this draft class in 3 years? Who's on the team? Who's the star? Who's a disappointment?
They fixed inside linebacker. That's the takeaway.
They brought inside linebacker.
I'm going to predict.
Meat and potatoes. Two guards, two D tackles, 2 inside linebackers. It's meat and potatoes. That's
within 4 years. Patrick Queen will have been a 2-time Pro Bowler. Ben Bredesen, I think, will be a starting guard. Duvernay is going to be a lot of fun, and he's going to be, regardless of like what position on the depth chart, I think he's going to be a playmaker for them. Malik Harrison's going to be a solid starter, I think. So there's just going to be, like you mentioned, meat and potatoes and a lot of starters acquired across the board.
We're going to look back in 3 years and we're going to say these guys brought linebackers back to Baltimore, back to their glory. And we're going to say, wow, those second-year guys have a shiny new ring on their finger.
Sure.
Sounds good. Any UDFAs? I haven't looked in a minute. Anybody else popping up we like?
I haven't seen anything crazy. Michael Divinity was like, I think Kyle was saying that's not official yet, and that he can't find a reputable source.
Didn't Divinity like get kicked off the team or something?
Something happened with him. I think that's why Queen started playing.
Right. Yeah, he took his spot. Who's the other one? Stevens, Ja'Cory Stevens.
Ja'Cory Stevens.
Their other inside back.
Huntley and our boy Huntley from Utah and our boy Trace McSorley are going to be in a battle royale in a death match in the
Connor
Thunder.
Rogers tweeted that out and said, I thought he was draftable.
He had a lot of good games at Utah. He can air the ball out a good bit.
He's a
And
little pocket passer, big arm, right?
fast and passing. Yeah.
You guys like any of the edges? What's up with that small school edge rusher? Any thoughts?
That's the guy.
JMU had a fire tandem. I'm sure that the other one signed somewhere. I was surprised. I can't recall their names off the top of my head. The one the Ravens signed is really good. The one that didn't get signed by the Ravens was like the runner-up for the FCS Player of the Year, like Defensive Player of the Year, whatever their award is. And they absolutely obliterated. Like those guys were far and away better than their competition. JMU was really good. Their edges were the strength of their defense. He is a speed guy, a penetrator, a looper, really good lateral agility, really long arms, traits guy, and crazy good production. So would not shock me to see him do some damage.
Kyle's down in the chat saying they got kicker Nick Vogel. So assuming that within a year that will be turned into a 5th-round pick.
Correct. They got a punter as well somewhere, I believe.
So it's another 5th-round pick.
Boom.
Keep those legs fresh in camp.
Hell yeah. And
the fact that Corey Vedvik was Norwegian helped him raise his profile. You got it. If his name was like Tom Smith, like
if his name was just spelled Corey, I think he would have lost some of his luster.
Corey Vedvik.
Because I probably said Kyer the first 50 times I said his name out loud.
There you go. Kyle said Dom Maggio.
That sounds like a slapping middle infielder for the Yankees in like 1971.
Sounds like a lasagna restaurant to me. I don't know.
Where's the gabagool?
Hey, I'm walking over here.
I'm walking.
Take it easy over here. When I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. We take it easy over here.
Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
Still do it.
And with that, we have digressed.
They pull me back in.
We have fully digressed.
We have. I think we're running over an hour on the podcast. Let me check.
We are. We're at an hour and 11, I believe.
Hour and 9 seconds.
Boom. We hit the mark. I think we should wrap it up because we're going to dig deeper, get the articles out, get all the content out, and we'll be back ASAP. I love doing the streaming. I love how easy it was to have Vaz pop in, have Kyle pop in the other day. I think this stream thing is here to stay on StreamYard. So we love having the comments come in. Michael Divinity to the Bucks, Kyle is saying. So no Michael Divinity, but we love having you guys in the comments while we're recording, makes it a little bit more interactive, pop some stuff off. We're going to be crushing articles, crushing film content, getting everything we can, breakdowns on these guys. We have nothing else to do, and I'm scared if this social distancing persists past about a month from now to the level that it's at now. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with myself, but I'm going to crush some film content. I know Vaz is going to pump some articles out. Jake is going to pump some articles out, and we're excited. So thank you guys for joining us.
You better get ready. A month from now?
2021 tape. 2021 tape.
Yeah.
Marvin Wilson, FSU. Check him out. That's
my God,
winning next year.
Future Baltimore Raven, the receiver out of Minnesota that was just Rashad Bateman, way better than Tyler Johnson. That's my call. That's my 2021. You heard it here first. First Ravens mock for 2021. Rashad Bateman, wide receiver, Minnesota.
I'm expecting a full Charleston Rambo right up on my desk by 8 a.m.
Charleston Rambo in the third. The Ravens get the weapons they need to win a Super Bowl after coming short in the AFC Championship this year.
Reunited with Hollywood. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Glad you guys had fun. Glad everyone in the comments had fun. If you did, you haven't confirmed to me if you did or not. But I'm assuming the fact that you were here, you had some fun. So if that's the case, feel free to go ahead and download the show on the podcast streaming services if you're already doing that. If you're not, please go there, click subscribe, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating with a review telling us what you think. Go ahead and follow the show on social media. Vas, where can they find you?
At Vasilis Beatdown, VASILIS BEATDOWN.
Very crisp. I like it. You can follow Spencer at Ravens4Dummies. That's the number 4. You can follow me at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE. Go ahead and check out the Baltimore Beatdown Twitter. Kyle does a great job doing the undrafted free agents tracker. He's got that running as we speak. So go and follow at Be More Beatdown for that. And yeah, like we were saying, keep checking out the website for all our great written content, and come back to the YouTube page. We're going to be trying to do as much video stuff as we can. So really appreciate you guys tuning in, enjoying this draft weekend with us. It was a lot of fun. And to the 2020 NFL draft, we say adieu.
Farewell.
Yasu.